Hi, I'm Peter Hilliard, and I haven't made a video for a while, but I do like to show you things that I find in musical theater, in the literature, in the canon, and I wanted to make sure I got this on tape before I forgot what I was going to say, because things have gotten pretty busy. I want to do 3 videos about Richard Rodgers and my favorite moments in Richard Rodgers. So this is the first one, and it's going to be about something that he does. And it's something that a lot of composers did in the 20s and 30s. I have an example here from Cole Porter. And, you know, the beginning of... Sorry, my piano's a little out of tune. The singer goes in the verse of Night and Day, like the beat, beat, beat of the tom-tom when the jungle shadows fall, like the tick-tick-tock of a stately clock as it stands against the wall. So the singer is on one note, like literally one note, and the harmony is, changing underneath it, which is what keeps it from getting boring. And Cole Porter's like moving the harmony around, and there's that single note that's holding the thing together. And it's a bit of a novelty here because Cole Porter is using it to be a ticking clock or of a tom-tom, like a drum, of just to sort of tell that story. Rodgers, that was in 1932. In 1937, 5 years later, Rodgers and Hart have this song that is really very similar, and it's also a novelty. And it even sort of starts the same way. It goes, Johnny could only sing one note, and the note he sang was this. Ah! And then it's like, poor Johnny, one note. And the song's about this dude who can only sing one note. And whenever he sings, it's this, ah! And right at the beginning, Johnny could only sing one note. Obviously, it's a joke. It's a thing. Like the music is matching what the lyric says. But Rodgers really likes to park on one note and do that for a while. And the fun thing is, I'm going to go chronologically here real quick through a bunch of places where Rodgers does this. And you can see him learning how to do things by using this technique. So those are that's an example from Rodgers and Hart. The next one is also Rodgers and Hart. It's from Pal Joey, which is probably their masterpiece from 1940. And this is the verse to I Could Write a Book, which I learned from listening to Harry Connick when I was a kid. But the verse, nobody ever does. Here's the verse, the first part of the verse to I Could Write a Book. It goes like this. Does that sound familiar? A, B, C, D, E, F, G, I never learned to spell, at least not well. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, I never learned to count a great amount. But my busy mind is burning to use what learning I've got. I won't waste any time, I'll strike while the iron is hot. If they ask me, and then the song that we all know. So obviously it's the same sort of thing that Rodgers is using to talk about the alphabet and the numbers that the singer doesn't know, but his harmony has gotten, instead of just kind of parking on this one note, and going underneath it, it actually it has a chromatic descending line, which another one of my videos is going to be about, and then it cadences in a beautiful way. It's starting to be more music and not just a joke. I'm going to fast forward, because when Rodgers starts working with Hammerstein in Oklahoma, the whole world opens up for him. I mean, Hart is wonderful, don't get me wrong, but Hart was writing these cleverly crafted lyrics, and Hammerstein is opening a world of characters, and Rodgers' imagination was just waiting for this thing to happen, which would allow him to use some of his gifts that he never got to use with Hart. So the quality of Rodgers' music changes. This is a passage from their second musical together, from Carousel, and it's from the scene on the bench that leads to If I Loved You. And this is a very similar idea, but it's put to a really different dramatic purpose. Because Julie is talking to Billy, and she's talking about working in the mill where she works at the loom, and she goes, when I worked in the mill, weaving at the loom, I'd gaze absent-mindedly at the roof. Absent-minded at the roof. Got that word wrong. The accompaniment is being her loom, right? Which is kind of awesome. And she's mostly on this G, right? And then she actually gets she parks on this F sharp, and then something really awesome happens. She goes, and half the time the shuttle tangled in the threads and the warp would get mixed with the woof. like when everything gets tangled up, it goes from being this really pretty, like, oh, the loom is going fine, everything is lovely, and then everything gets like all tangled up. That sounds ugly and gross, right? And then she goes, if I love you, right? And Billy will do the same thing later because he always learns his tunes from her in the piece. But that's a step way ahead of this like repeating note thing doing something for the character. The next bit is from The King and I. But I want to show you how he learned what he's going to do in The King and I in Oklahoma. So in Lonely Room, which is Judd's like freaky number, which, you know, if you look at Rodgers and Hart, there's no way, you would never have guessed that Rodgers knew how to do this. The whole number has this thing, which is like the nightmare version of like Johnny One Note, right? With these like nasty chords under it. It's kind of wild and awesome. But at the end of it, in this bit that actually he'll use it with Billy Bigelow in his soliloquy. It actually sort of sounds like it. He goes, I ain't gonna dream about her arms no more. I ain't gonna leave her alone. And then he goes to the last thing, going outside. There's this time the notes are on the bottom. It's a little bit like Billy Joel, you know, down here, or Beethoven. It's a B, and on the top is this G chord, so it's like a first inversion G chord. But then he does this chord, that, which is really dark, an E flat chord over this B, and then the harmony goes up like that over the top of it. That is some crazy stuff. Now, the single note, the pedal tone, really, literally a pedal tone, is down on the bottom, and these chords are psychologically shifting over the top of it to show that his mind is sort of disordered. Well, I think Rodgers liked what that did. I think he liked the sound of that. This is the beginning of something wonderful. It's just a verse, and it seems like a throwaway, but there's some really neat stuff in here. So he goes like this, and the line goes, this is a man who thinks with his heart is not always wise. Well, let me just park there for a second. This kind of thing is all over musical theater, you know, then the thing goes up like the, right, but he doesn't do that. He goes from this fifth, he goes up a note, but then it goes up too high. And then it goes to another wrong note, which resolves up. It's almost like Rodgers is trying to hit every single tendency note around the home chord to just make us feel like things are a little unsettled. But she's staying on this C sharp. She goes, this is a man who thinks with his heart is not always wise. And that shows that she, even though the things around her are unsteady and unclear, she is rock solid on this. Then she goes, this is a man who stumbles and falls, but this is a man who tries. Now check this out. She stays on that note. She goes, this is a man you'll forgive and forgive. What? There's the chord, actually. This is a man you'll forgive and forgive. That chord is like a chord from funk music. It's like, it doesn't sound like Richard Rodgers at all. It sounds like something really wild and jazzy. This is a man you'll forgive and help and protect. Also extremely dissonant. And then she goes, as long, and then it feels like it's going toward the tonic, as you live. And then there's this, which I'll get to in another video, that little transition. This is like a moment where Rodgers has moved from he's just gone from using these single note things as a trick to using them to show, like a part of psychological portraiture, to show these characters in moments of extreme confusion or determination or psychological stress. The characters he's using the harmony and he's using that single note melody to do this, to do the hard work for him. I'm going to skip. I had another selection from It's Me, which is great. You should definitely look at that. And also from In My Own Little Corner, which also puts the thing on the bottom, puts the repeated note on the bottom. Those two, you should definitely check them out because it shows that Rodgers doesn't have to use those things in like crazy psychological moments. He also uses them for funny moments, even later in his career. Well, finally, when Hammerstein dies after The Sound of Music, the first show that Rodgers wrote after Hammerstein died was called No Strings. There was no strings in the pit, and Rodgers wrote the words and the music himself. It's kind of the last quasi-successful piece that Rodgers wrote also. He lived a lot longer, wrote more shows, but listen to the opening of the song The Sweetest Sounds. We'll end with this. It goes... it's that same idea. And then the verse goes, what do I really hear? And what is in the ear of my mind? Which sounds are true and clear, and which will never be defined? And the chorus goes, the sweetest sounds I'll ever hear are still inside my head. That chorus has a bunch of wrong notes in it. That's the whole point of it. It keeps ending, it keeps getting to these important moments in the melody, and there's a wrong note. The sweetest sound, and it resolves. I'll end, that ninth dissonant, resolve. Here are still inside my head. The tune is beautiful. It's one of those great Rodgers tunes, but it is built on these wrong notes. So to offset that and give us a real sense of where we are in the verse, Rodgers plants the singer on the home tone, on the tonic. What do I really hear? I love this coming up. And what is in the ear of my mind? This chord. Which sounds are true? That voicing even could be Burt Bacharach. That sounds so so modern, so fresh. And then it goes to the two, or the four, and then it's the 5 chord, and then he's back in. By the time he gets to the end of his career, Rodgers is like effortlessly using this device, which has matured with him since the 20s, when people were using it kind of as a joke. And Rodgers has incorporated it into this very mature musical language, where he's able to make these very great dramatic points with this very simple device, which is one note in the melody that everything else shifts around. So the other 2 videos, which I'll post sometime in the future when I have a break, I want to do his best turnarounds, and then I want to talk about his chromatic harmony, because Rodgers is pretty good at both of those things. Thank you for watching. I hope you got something that you thought was interesting, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.